quite difficult to get off, because although this is a razor blade, it should be flat. Well, I've got it clean and smooth. Obviously tried not to scratch it at all, but I might have scratched a bit there. Won't matter with a bit of with a joint washer on there. This is the big handle that drives the apron left and right. And I was just looking at this and thinking, well, I wonder what that's for. And I realised that you can pull the handle out a bit and thereby disengage when you're using power feed, if you don't like this thing weighing you around. But it was so stiff. So this side is painted. I'm not bothered about this oil level thing, because surprisingly you can buy the exact same thing with the same type number as it was in 1980s. And it says R2291M on the casting. Well, this is the main handle for driving the saddle along the x-axis, and it's got play in it. Well, I don't really like that on that particular control, so I think I will try and take this spindle out and see if I can fix it. Right, I just realised that I can simply withdraw this bit of it, and we can see that the bush and or the shaft is worn. This grub screw holds a spring down for this detent. Presumably there's a ball underneath it. What this one does I don't know, but hopefully it helps to take things out. Well, I'm just trying to get that roll pin out, but it's down in that hole, and I'm just trying to hold the shaft at the right angle with a mole grip. Well, it's not going very far, is it? That's that side. All I'm doing is mashing the gear up. The other side has come out a bit, no more than ½ millimetre. Shall I spray it with penetrating fluid and leave it till tomorrow? Well, it's not going to come out by hammering, so I'm going to try and drill it out, and as I'm not quite sure what direction I'm going in, this is a 5mm roll pin, and I'm using a 3.5mm drill to start off with. I'm not convinced I'm starting in the centre of that though, that's the trouble. Could put it on the mill, couldn't I? Probably should put it on the mill actually. It's at an angle for a while. Can actually see through it down there, which is good. Just want to go a little bit further over. Can you hit it? Drill is hitting me. Still can't see through it now. Right, we've got up to 4mm. Is this a blunt drill? This is a new drill. Now, alright, well, since the drill isn't long enough to go right the way through from that side, I can do the other side, can't I? Right, so this shaft comes out this way. That is to say, the handle goes on this end, comes out that way. I think that's all right. Forgotten why I wanted to take this out now. Oh, I know. So the problem is that this bit of this shaft, which fits in there that way, but is loose. So either this is one or that's one. We'll have to measure it. Right, so the shaft is 19.88 millimeters and the bush is 20.26 and slightly oval, leaving a clearance of nearly 0.4 millimeters, which is enormously much too much. So we'll have to do something about that. Definitely replace the bush. This bush has no oil channels in it, and perhaps it would benefit from some oil channels. Now I thought that I could fix this myself without buying anything, because if we take this pin out, we can withdraw this shaft this way. So the part of it that's worn is this part here, which fits in this bush. I was thinking I can easily make a new bush like that, only slightly smaller, if I were to machine this part down to the nearest sensible dimension. It will fit in a smaller bush and nothing else will be affected. And I'm just making a fixed centre. And so on. Right, well, it's running true to within 0.6 thou, which is all I can get it. So if I go up to here, this point here, which is relatively unworn, still not quite right. That's it. And I've lost track of where I am, as usual. Typical. Try and pay attention. Put that on naught. So just go a little bit further. Right, well, I want to get this bush out, and I'm thinking I happen to have a piece of scrap that exactly more or less fits in there, so that if I were to put this like this, like that, and then if I put this socket on the top, and then put this on here, is this going to work? I don't know. What? Something's happening. I think this is an M12 metric fine pitch, which I bought this piece of high tensile studding specifically for this kind of go on. Right, well, it is coming, I think. I fully expected it to have come out by now. Oh, well, yes, it's a bit late in the day. I didn't realise that there is actually a grub screw here, which I could have removed, couldn't I, if I'd had any sense. Yes, you stupid boy. Could have removed this grub screw. Could and should have removed this grub screw. Let's hope it hasn't done too much damage. So, this bush would have come out easily had I not been mentally defective. But you see, it's that grub screw has cut this groove in it because I didn't withdraw the grub screw. What a moron. So this is SAE 660 bronze with a hole in the middle. That's 15, 16, 17 and a half. It's cold. $25.99, 26.02. That's about right. It should be the same size as this. Guess it is. I suppose I should chamfer this. The ultimate hole has to be 19 and a half. So I had difficulty drilling this bronze because the lathe doesn't have enough torque. If I ran it at a slow speed, the motor would stall, and if I ran it at faster speed, the drill was locking up inside the workpiece. That's going okay once we got over the burr. So that's 19. With hideous noises. So this is 19 millimeters in diameter, and this is a 19.5 millimeter reamer. So it's got to take 1/4 millimeter off the radius, or onto the radius. I hope it can manage that. I'm going to put cutting fluid on it, whether it's a good thing or not. As far as it will go. It always takes longer than you think, doesn't it, to get through something when parting off. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Could not be better. Right, well, there's the finished bush, and hopefully it will just go on there. I think that's going to be fine. Well, I'm just repainting the apron and the gap bed. So though it's had its first coat of Harrison beige. I'm just cleaning out these threads after painting. So I installed the new bush in the apron housing, and that was all going to be fine. But then I looked again at this shaft and I saw that there was something else wrong with it. You remember I had difficulty moving it from one of these detents to the other. Had to hit it with a hammer. And the reason is that this detent is heavily worn. There's a spring that pushes a 6mm diameter ball bearing into these detents, and I think the spring is quite sort of sharp and would definitely stop the ball bearing from rotating. Therefore, every time you move the apron or the saddle left and right by turning the big handle, you're basically scraping a stationary ball bearing around this slot, and naturally enough it is worn, probably because the ball bearing is harder than the shaft. Not really a particularly good design, in my humble opinion. Anyway, what I wanted to do was weld up this V and then recut it so that it matches this one, which is not worn. Unfortunately, I sold my MIG welder 5 years ago, so I couldn't do it myself. So what I have done is sent it to a fellow YouTuber called John Mills, who has the channel called Double Boost, which is a really excellent machinist channel. And he kindly undertook to weld it up for me. So it's with him at the moment, and I'll continue with this part of the project when it comes back. I'm a bit suspicious of this bottom plate of the apron. It seems to be a rather crudely made thing cut out of 1/8 of an inch thick plate steel. All the edges were quite sharp and the corners are quite sharp. It doesn't exactly fit the shape of the casting to which it's bolted, and the other side of this plate, i.e. the inside of the plate, is completely bare steel, whereas the whole of the rest of the apron is painted inside with red paint. And I thought it was odd that Harrison would have avoided doing that on this plate. And the plate, when I took it out, was considerably pitted with rust. So, I began to wonder whether it was an original one or not. Not having any glip towel, I decided that rather than painting the inside of this plate, I would nickel plate it, just to stop it rusting, if there is any water in the oil. So now I will turn this on. .6 amps. Well, you can see that amount of fizzing. I think I'll wind the voltage down, or basically it's the current that matters. So this is the bottom or outside side, which I didn't want to plate because I'm going to paint it. And that's the inside, which has been nickel plated. There were some deep rust holes which I've kind of ground away with a carbide burr, but I didn't get them all. I mean, you can see that there are a few pitted rust holes in here, but basically most of it is well nickel plated, so it's not going to rust so much as before. I made a new joint washer out of flexoid. I think because it's slightly rough, the bottom of this plate, I will put some Hylamar on it